It's time for HawgSports Live from HawgSports.com, a division of 24/7 Sports, presented by Crain Automotive. The Crain Team's got 'em. Visit them online at crainteam.com. And now with the latest breaking updates on HawgSports, here's Trey Biddy.
What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. This will be the last show, I guess, we do before Christmas. And just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Hope everybody has a happy new year. We'll be back with you guys before New Year's Eve, though. But just wanted to make sure we say that. A lot of interesting stuff going on with Razorback football. I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff going on with the transfer portal. You may think the transfer portal doesn't open until January 2nd, but in fact, the transfer portal is very much open. A lot of stuff going around behind the scenes right now. So we'll talk about that. I want to get into coaching staff and the salaries that we're seeing right now for Arkansas coaches. We've reported all of those so far with the new staff, with the new coaches, and we're going to talk Razorback basketball with Connor Goodson. We're going to talk about recruiting in the upcoming transfer portal as well. What's going to be happening in front of the scenes with Danny West. All that and more on today's episode of Hawg Sports Live. The Crain Automotive Team has 16 locations across our state and is home to the Crain commitment. You'll find Ford, Chevy, Buick, GMC, Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen, and access to thousands of pre-owned vehicles. Vehicles for every lifestyle and every budget. Even if you're not in the market for a vehicle, the Crain Team Service Centers offer the latest in vehicle diagnostic technology and certified technicians to take care of your vehicle and get you back on the road. Check them out at crainteam.com. Hawg Sports Live is driven by the Crain Automotive Team.
You've done it. Now you're the Crain Cash Champ. You just won big with the Crain Team. Go ahead, soak it up. How could you not feel like a winner? You dominated with our low price guarantee, and you got way more for your trade. Plus, with statewide delivery on thousands of vehicles from 16 locations, and the fact that we'll beat any other dealer's price, we make our Kansans feel like champions every day. That's winning. That's the Crain Team. Visit crainteam.com.
They're going to beat any other dealer's price and the Crain commitment, making Arkansas winners. Check out our friends over at Crain Automotive. 16 locations throughout the state. So Arkansas basketball, a little disappointing with Houston. We took Houston and the over on this one on Bet Saracen during the wager wagon, but that was just because the battered hog syndrome seeping in. Everybody's talking too nice about Arkansas. Long term, long run, this would probably be a good thing for Arkansas. Obviously, you want to win the game, but to get exposure to a team that plays defense like Houston does, I think will be a good thing for them long term. Trevin Brazile obviously didn't have a very good night, only 5 points, got in foul trouble early, and I'd heard he's maybe a little bit under the weather also. So, but Darius Acuff with another big night, just couldn't overcome. Once you go down, 21 points or something, I mean, it was just very difficult for them to come back from that, though they did battle back and actually only ended up losing by 9. But would have liked to see a little bit better outcome early in that game. But, man, when it got like 17-15, they just went, whew. So next up for Arkansas, Monday, December 29th at James Madison, against James Madison. I'm not playing at James Madison, but against James Madison. And we'll talk to Connor just a little bit more about the basketball game, what's on the horizon for the Razorbacks. Bobby Petrino is going to be the new offensive coordinator at North Carolina. That rumor's been going around for about a week, maybe a little bit longer than that. Glad he's not in the SEC. Glad he found a good landing spot at a place where, hopefully he can enjoy some success, and I think we'll all be following Bobby Petrino and see what he does. But glad to see him out of the SEC, but still at a notable program. A college football playoff. Some interesting matchups from the past couple days, but obviously some ones that turned out like you thought with James Madison and Oregon. Obviously, Oregon taking care of business pretty good there, although it only ended up being a 17-point win. They were in control the whole time. Alabama and Oklahoma was an interesting game. Oklahoma jumps out to a 17-point lead. You never really got the feeling that Alabama was going to be out of it because we've seen stuff like that with them before. But when that punter laid that ball on the ground, which was bizarre. I mean, I know in real time, in slow motion at least, it looks like he just kind of was going to drop kick the ball or something, but obviously that turned the tide a lot, and Alabama just raced. I think Oklahoma only scored maybe in the fourth quarter on the first drive of the fourth quarter or something. I think that was it after that initial 17. So Alabama advancing, they're going to play Indiana. That's really intriguing, I think, to see this matchup. Oregon, of course, advancing. They're going to play Texas Tech. These are both January 1st games. It's going to be some fun football January 1st, December 31st. Obviously, Ole Miss took care of Tulane pretty much in the same manner that they took care of them in the regular season. That's the only thing I think that we can see now that's like, this is – there's some taintedness to this because Tulane and James Madison really neither of them have any business being. I thought Nick Saban made a good point. It's kind of like having a AAA team play in the World Series. I mean, yes, you want to give those teams some hope that they can win a national championship, but having two of them in there, I think that's something that's got to be looked at. We could just do away with the 4 conference champions getting automatic bids. I mean, we know that that's going to pretty much happen anyway, right? I mean, you don't have to make it to where you have to have, a situation where you end up with Tulane and James Madison because of this. But anyway, Ole Miss and Georgia will be squaring off. That was a loss for Ole Miss this year, so a rematch there. But that one's January 1st. And then, of course, the Miami-Texas A&M game was really entertaining for a 10-3 game. And to me, like, I go out of bounds right there. I think I would go out of bounds. And I know kicking had been an issue the entire game, but when Miami scored that last touchdown, I was like, man, that's a lot of time left on the clock. And of course, in a defensive struggle, Texas A&M gets in their 2-minute offense and just marches it down the field when they hadn't scored all game. Of course, threw an interception, getting their hearts ripped out at the end of the game. And I've said before, it's a little sad as Razorback people that, like, that's about all we've got is to take some enjoyment that Texas A&M had their guts ripped out like that. But that's what you get with a 2-10 football program. That's all you get. Hopefully those days are behind Arkansas and we can start moving forward with this new coaching staff. But Miami and Ohio State, that's a December 31st game at 6:30 p.m. So we got to wait a little bit. We got to wait a week. But some entertaining football games coming up, obviously, bowl season and all that stuff. The Arkansas football staff is complete as far as on-field coaches. There are 13 on-field coaches, as we've talked about before. June of 2024, they changed the rule where you aren't limited to 10 on-field coaches. You can basically have as many as you want. But this is about a number that other teams have been doing. Arkansas still only did 10 last year. But officially now, Ryan Silverfield, obviously head coach. I'm not going to go down the list of all the coaches. You guys know who has been hired so far. I do want to talk about the salaries, okay? Because that was one thing we talked about. That was a metric that we were going to be able to look at and say, okay, Arkansas is spending more money now. We're not going to be able to look at their full report until the end of next year. We're not going to just know what they're spending on travel, what they're spending on recruiting and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to know NIL stuff. We may never know what NIL stuff is. But we can FOIA these salaries for these assistant coaches and find out if the pool is higher. Last year, they were at $6.465 million for this whole staff. That was that put them at about 14. It put them at 14th out of the 15 public institutions that have to report that kind of stuff. 14th in the SEC. No wonder you're getting those kind of results. Not including Morgan Turner, who's being retained as tight ends coach. His deal runs through February, so his will be restructured. Not including him, this year's staff is at $8.11 million. If you include Turner's salary that he's currently making now, and I think he'll probably get more, that's $8.435 million. So you're basically looking at Arkansas spending a clean $2 million more on this staff. And even though you have 3 more coaches, like that's still an average for those 3 coaches, $666,000 per coach. So that $666,000 is the kind of salary that you would give, a big-time defensive line coach like Marion Hobby, a guy that's been in the NFL, a guy that's been a defensive coordinator in college. It's the kind of salary you would give to like a co-defensive coordinator, like you're giving Darren Wilson, who's co-defensive coordinator, passing game defensive coordinator, secondary coach, that kind of title. It's the kind of money that you would give. Those guys make about $700,000. So even though you have 3 more coaches, like it's like you're paying 3 more coaches big time money, assistant coach wise. So, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Arkansas is spending significantly more. Now, we don't have the full 2025 numbers yet, but we do have the 2024 numbers on USA Today for coaching staffs. And this would have put Arkansas at like 5th, I think, in the SEC in 2024. So I'm not sure what it is on 2025 numbers, though. Obviously, a lot of staffs added more coaches. So the salaries that we know so far, Marcus Johnson, offensive line coach, is going to make $500,000 total. So the way they do it, for those of you who've followed this in the past, you do a salary for a coach, and then you do other compensation. So he'll make $250,000 in salary. That's money paid through the University of Arkansas, and another $250,000 paid in other compensation. That's money pays, through the fundraising arm, the Razorback Foundation. State employees can only be paid so much money, so you have to supplement in another way. So I'm not going to go into like what the split is on every one of them, but Marcus Johnson, $500,000. Clint Trickett as quarterbacks coach, $275,000. Co-defensive coordinator and secondary coach Darren Wilson, who we spoke about, $700,000. And I think that's all the ones that were. Oh yeah, Kainji Cotton, the one coach that nobody knew about, who will be defensive line coach and running game defensive coordinator. He'll earn $400,000. So those were the last 4 coaches that we found out about. They announced 5 coaches, including Morgan Turner, in the most recent round of announcements. We know that Ron Roberts is going to make $2 million, making him the highest paid assistant coach in Arkansas history, defensive coordinator, linebackers. And we know that Tim Cramsey is going to make $1.4 million as the offensive coordinator. We know that Chad Lunsford will make $285,000, and I wonder if some kind of part of that is offset with his, salary at Auburn. I mean, this is a guy that was a former G5 head coach at Georgia Southern, so you would expect him to make more than $285,000, but that's the number. I'd reported, C.J. Wilford, there'd been talk about him. He is going to be like focusing on safeties, but he's technically an analyst. T.J. Rushing, who was reported by somebody at ESPN, I think Rittenberg at ESPN, is actually not even on the staff. So other salaries that we've reported recently: Eddie Hicks, cornerbacks coach, $400,000. Marion Hobby, defensive line coach, $700,000. David Johnson, running backs coach, $550,000. Jeff Myers, offensive line coach and running game coordinator, $500,000. Larry Smith, wide receivers, $400,000. So those are the salaries right now for Arkansas assistant coaches. And we know that other people are, obviously being hired, and like Scott Gasper, senior director of recruiting and player personnel. He'll have a guy under him also. That name's kind of been floated around, but we'll wait till that's official. Geiska Crowley, football GM, and it's spelled Gaizka, but it's like Geiska, like ice, Geiska Crowley. CJ Wilford, as I mentioned, will be an analyst. Nick Matthews will be a senior offensive analyst. So a few other positions that'll continue to trickle out here and there in the coming days. That's right. Pit Crew 31 asked this yesterday, actually. I just kind of saved it for the show instead of answering it on our message board, the Razor's Edge Premium Forum. Trey, some questions touching on some things you talked about on your show, talking about the show on Thursday. We had 65 players on the roster not saying anything yet, whether they're staying at Arkansas or hitting the transfer portal. I realize some may not say anything at all, but most of these players live on social media, so I assume most of them would post it. Have our coaches talked to all the roster? Basically, he's asking if all the coaches have had conversations with these players, and the answer is yes. They've had conversations with every one of these players. I don't know if they've had conversation with Keyshawn Davila or not, because he announced for the portal before Ryan Silverfield was ever hired. But and I talked about this, like the last show that we had, the title of the show was the transfer portal black market, basically. The transfer portal calm before the storm. But what I want to talk about is, it's not even fair to call it the black market, because that would imply that it's a niche deal, and it's really everybody doing this. all of these players right now are in discussion with these coaches about what their salary is going to be next year. And they're able to know what their market value is because other teams have offered them salaries. Now, Eli Drinkwitz and whoever else, Jeff Traylor, I feel real sorry for Jeff Traylor because his roster just gets rated. But, they can say whatever they want, but, like, you have to be doing the same thing if you're going to be competitive. If you're not tampering right now in some kind of way, what are you doing? Everybody is doing it, and there's nothing that's really preventing it from happening because it's happening through back channels. It's happening through representation or agents and stuff like that. But all these players know, like when they're agreeing to deals and stuff, they're not waiting till January 2nd to find out, okay, we got 2 weeks here to figure this out, see who offers what. This is all going on right now. I mean, that should be obvious, I think. I don't think that like I'm breaking news or anything, that right now all this stuff is happening. So, yeah, it's interesting that you've only had a handful of guys that are saying, hey, I'm not coming back to Arkansas next year. I'm leaving for the transfer portal. You've had a handful of guys saying, hey, I'm staying at Arkansas. I think those guys probably know what their offers are out there, and Arkansas has probably said, hey, we got this for you. And they said, well, okay, I like that number. And you see them, recommit to Arkansas. The other 65 guys or whatever who have said nothing, again, in a time where these players say everything, like you're out of eligibility and you declare for the NFL draft still. And again, I think a lot of that's just like they want to say the message, enjoyed my time being a Razorback. Thank you to the fans. Thanks for the support, all that kind of stuff. So it's important that people understand, like, just because the transfer portal opens on January 2nd, that doesn't mean the transfer portal hasn't been open for months already, because it has. All of this negotiating, all of this stuff has been going on. It's just the way it is. So this holiday season, guys, I know you haven't finished your shopping, and you're like, what am I gonna do? Am I missing something here? Where's my? There we are. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry. But you can shop online at Blakeman's, by the way. Like, it's the finest jewelry store in the state of Arkansas. Their new location in Rogers is worth seeing if you can get up there. But if you can't, you can go online to blakemans.com and shop. This holiday season, shop for a meaningful gift that will last at Blakeman's Fine Jewelry, the official jeweler of the Arkansas Razorbacks. From exceptional diamonds and homeware to designer jewelry and timepieces from brands like David Yurman, Rolex, Tudor, Baccarat, and more. Enjoy a festive shopping experience both in-store at 3202 Pinnacle Hills Parkway in Rogers and from anywhere at blakemansfinejewelry.com. Make your holidays unforgettable with Blakeman's. I know you hadn't finished your holiday shopping. I want to know, like, what are you getting your spouse? What are you getting your spouse? Most of you guys are men on here. I get that, but we do have a few women. But I want to know what you're getting your husband, getting your wife for Christmas. If you have anonymity, I guess. If you have your actual name on there, maybe don't post that. But if you have an anonymous kind of name, I want to know if you got something special, something weird, something different. I'd like to know. I always think about, when I ask that kind of question each year, I think about that Saturday Night Live skit. And it's the Lexus November to Remember sales event. And if you haven't seen that, and the guy buys his wife a Lexus, and she's like, "You bought a Lexus without talking to me?" It's hilarious skit. All right. We're going to go to Connor Goodson. We're going to talk a little bit about Razorback basketball. Connor's going to join us on the Ozarks Go hotline. If you are disappointed with your internet service, or you're just looking for new service, I always say Ozarks Go gets my stamp of approval. I've used them for nearly 4 years now and have never had an issue with Ozarks Go. 479-684-4900, or you can go to ozarksgo.net/hog in Northwest Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma. They are ever expanding, so do check out if they haven't been available in your area to see if they're in your area. They offer several different tiers of internet. Gigabit Plus, which is 2,500 megabits per second, which is flying. 1,000 megabits, which I think is great for most families, and several other different tiers, and not going to jack your rate up from year 1 to year 2 either. ozarksgo.net/hog. Connor, how's it going?
What's up, Trey? Can't complain. Man, I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but Christmas, man, it's ramping up. Got two more big Christmases, and then obviously Christmas Day stuff to go. So yeah, it's the busy season right now.
You see how Connor's frozen there. I was joking with him the other day. I was like, it actually works out perfectly to have you on the Ozarks Go segment because Connor does not have Ozarks Go in his area, so he freezes up all the time.
I literally just checked. I'm plugged in, man. I got the new Ethernet cable. It's not good. It doesn't work.
Well, you're up and running most of the time. We can always hear your voice. But Connor, just want to get your impressions on the basketball game on Saturday, which, by the way, I don't know if I need to remind you on the Bet Saracen wager wagon. I picked Houston and the over, and you picked Arkansas and the under.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be a defensive battle, two really good defensive teams. Houston, obviously, that's their calling card. I did not expect them to have just an incredible night shooting. It was really abnormal for them to go off like that. They hadn't had a performance like that in a while, and you don't really expect that from Houston. But so I was kind of going into it saying, well, maybe, Arkansas, they don't find their offense. They kind of lean on their defense to just continue to get stops and opportunities. And that didn't really happen. So obviously Houston was on pace for like 135 points after that first run. But Arkansas settled in and made it a game. And it was a very abnormal shooting performance from Houston. And Arkansas had some abnormalities as well, not hitting free throws and really not being able to slow them down much at the defensive end.
Yeah, I don't need to be shooting 60% from free throw. You take 35 of them and you only knock down 60% of them. That's not going to get it done against a team like Houston. No. What are your thoughts? Are you discouraged? You think this, like I've talked to some people and they're like, maybe Arkansas needed a game like that to see a team that plays defense like Houston. Of course, Arkansas still scored 85, but maybe that would be a good thing for Arkansas. I think Sampson said, guys, it's not even Christmas. We got 60 days here. So I thought that was a good point too.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm too discouraged. If you're changing your outlook on this team based on this performance, then I think that's very much an overreaction. I liken it a little bit to the Thanksgiving game last year against Illinois. Illinois went on that big 17-0 run or something to start, and Arkansas for the rest of the game they would get it within 9-8. But then Illinois would make some runs and go on and make it a 15-point game. And Arkansas could never get over that hump for the entire game. And that they learned a lot from it. And they were able to go to New York and knock off Michigan in their next big contest with some of the things that they learned from that Illinois game. So I think that you're right. This game is a big time learning opportunity for Arkansas. They can learn from it. They kind of see and know what that next level looks like, what they have to do to be able to compete with the Houstons, the Dukes, the Michigans, those teams that they're going to have to beat if they want to get to the Final Four and ultimately win a national championship.
So, Connor, what do we know about the key rankings and stuff like this after the loss to Houston net and all that kind of stuff? What have you do?
So Arkansas they're still in pretty good shape, all things considered. A loss to Houston like that at this point in the season, it's not anywhere near like a disaster or anything like that. It's actually pretty good from a metric standpoint. Arkansas, I think they slid down like 7 spots in the net, which is kind of expected, especially with some of the movement we saw from different results. But some of these metrics, Arkansas has never been really big metrics, darling. The thing that I think stands out to me, and it kind of paints the picture of where this Arkansas team is, last year this time, defense was really, really good. They were like top 20 defensively. Offense was struggling to get up to speed. And we were kind of figuring, we were all thinking, if they can get this offense clicking, they can get Boogie Flan going, DJ Wagner going in a conference play, man, this team can be really elite. It's completely flipped right now. Arkansas is a top 20 offensive team, according to Kim Palm. Defense is like 48th in the country right now. So, you can kind of look and see, well, that checks out because Arkansas was just getting blown by Houston's guards the other night, and they were giving no resistance. Some of that, I think, was a little fatigue from having to claw back into it. But it kind of paints a picture of Arkansas. If they can get things tightened down defensively, man, the offense is good enough to compete with anyone. Their offense is fine. They've got guys making shots. Darius Acuff is one of the best guards in the country, not just among freshmen, but in the entire country. And you can get help from really anyone. You're super deep. So if you can get that defense, the defensive issues, the effort, little things like that, the miscommunications, clean that up. Arkansas is in really good shape to make a run and make a lot of noise once conference play starts.
So we got a little bit of a break here. I mean, they've got
Mm-hmm.
basically 8 days between games, and you've got James Madison coming up on Monday, a week from now. So a bit of a break, Christmas break for them. Maybe get their legs back a little bit, kind of work on some of the things maybe that went wrong against Houston, and then it's number 20 Tennessee in Fayetteville, and a couple road games, but it's all SEC play after this.
Yeah, no, and I think I've got that Tennessee game circled. That's a big opportunity. I liken that one to the opportunity they had against Louisville, where Arkansas they went to Chicago, got humbled a little bit with being up by 7 late, and then Duke just coming back, inserting their will, and kind of stealing that one from the Hogs. They kind of had time to lick their wounds. They come back to a packed Bud Walton, and are able to really put it on Louisville and show people what this team can be. I feel like that's going to be the similar vibe going into Tennessee. They should handle James Madison. Obviously don't want to overlook opponents, but James Madison just not talent wise, efficiency metrics, nothing like that stands out to be like this should be a dangerous trap game for Arkansas. No, you handle that game, and then you really hope that the fans can come out. It's a Saturday game against Tennessee, ranked opponent. A guy like Nate Ament, who kind of drug Arkansas along in his recruitment until early spring. There's a little bit of a rivalry there, I guess you could say. But you hope you get a packed house, you get a focused Arkansas team, and you can really make some noise. And that would be a win that I think that the metrics would like, the rankings would like, and I think it'd be a big confidence boost to really kick off SEC play for this Arkansas team for sure.
Yeah, I also think Arkansas's got a pretty high ceiling, because there is so much youth and stuff. I don't know if you play much better than Acuff has been playing, but you're going to get better as a team, I think. And you look at basically the way I would look at it is Arkansas went 2-3, this early part of the season. Obviously, you should beat teams like Southern and Winthrop and whatnot, although they only won by 1 against Winthrop.
Yeah.
But they lost by 3 against Michigan State. They lost by 9 against Duke. They beat Louisville by 9. They beat Texas Tech by 9, and they lost to Houston by 9. Of those, let's see, I know Michigan State and Duke played each other, but Texas Tech, who Arkansas beat pretty good, beat Duke. So like a lot of it's just is the ball. Is it falling for you, and just a couple plays here and there. And the game can be turned around pretty significantly. But I do like this team a lot. I think most people do, and I think you're right. Like, opinions shouldn't change, and it's a long way until March.
Yeah, and I mean, if they actually dive into the footage, I know Cal says he doesn't like to watch his losses and dwell on it, but if they can really look at that tape and figure out some things, I mean. I really loved Malik Ewan actually went on Twitter after the game, and he said, "My fault, guys. I've missed too many free throws." Like, he's taking accountability, and a guy like that who's kind of hitting his stride, and he really felt like he's turned a corner recently when he kind of says that and steps up and takes a little bit of accountability. You kind of like that mindset from guys to where they're not going to point fingers. You've got a lot of guys who are grinders on this team. Yeah. And that they're going to go back to work and kind of figure out, and there are a lot of ball left for this Arkansas team to make some noise and reach that ceiling that we know they're all capable of.
I was talking to a guy the other day at one of I think 3 Christmas parties I had this weekend, but he made a good point. It's like, you run into Houston again, hey, we can feed Ewan, and Ewan knows he's got to do better at the free throw line, like stuff like that. But there'll be guys, like, we saw last year, DJ Wagner wasn't playing very well. And then when Boogie went down, he just turned it on, So, like, there'll be a guy like that. Maybe it's Ewan who just continues to build and factor in more. Obviously, I think we'd like to see more out of Pringle. Like maybe if he could come on, that would be really nice. But he only played 9 minutes on Saturday.
Yeah, and Malik Thomas is having just he's having a rough go of it right now too. Yes. They've got so many guys that, like, on any given night can really help you win a game, and that's what is so tantalizing about their ceiling. Like, that's what makes it so fun to watch this team, is because any given night they're capable of having 4 or 5 guys that can just really put it on teams. You just haven't seen that consistently, and I think that as the season goes on, you hope that you see more of that from guys, especially the veterans. Like, in big games, it's just like, if you don't get anything from Trevor Brazile and Carter Knox, Arkansas just doesn't win. And so, you can't keep those guys down for long. They're experienced, Trevor Brazile especially. So if you can get guys like that to come on a little bit more consistently to help out the A-Cuffs, to help out the, Billy Richmonds and Malik Ewins who are really playing well, the ceiling is unlimited for this Arkansas team. That they can compete with anyone. It's about unlocking that next level for this group.
Yeah. If you can get Malik Thomas going again, his last 3 games haven't been very good. All right, Connor. Appreciate you, bud.
Appreciate you, Trey.
All right, everybody. That's Connor Goodson. You can follow him at Connor Goodson on X. Read his content at HawgSports. We're going to be joined by Danny West here in just a second. I would like to take a moment to tell you about our friends over at Walker Brothers. Today's segment sponsored by this quarter zip from Vuori that I got at Walker Brothers. Nice fit, nice fabric, good thickness. I think that maybe these are a little bit thicker than because I bought one a couple years ago, but it's got a little bit more thickness to it. Anyway, Walker Brothers brings you the finest men's clothing from around the world, carefully selected to last, fit right, and help you look your best. From game day essentials to distinguished luxury wear, from a meticulously fitted suit to the perfectly faded pair of jeans, every piece in their collection is hand-selected for enduring quality and iconic style. Experience that undeniable confidence that comes with perfecting your personal style. Visit them at 577 Millsap Road, Suite number 6 in Fayetteville, or at their brand new location, 3503 South 55th Street, Suite 101 in Rogers. Good people. And I want to say congratulations. So John Cole and his wife, Karen, started Walker Brothers years ago. Fayetteville Staples. We got 3 boys. Great family. But anyway, John and Karen was that Saturday? Saturday celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and we were lucky enough to be invited to that. And just congratulations to them. Pretty sweet. 50 years. Okay. We're going to go to Danny now. Danny's visiting us remotely. Danny, what's up, man?
Hey, Biddy, you there?
I'm here, man.
Sure. Hey, sorry, I'm on the road today. I'm a true road show. You know how it gets, Biddy. You get a few days left, and you're like, holy crap, I haven't done this and that and this. If I don't do it today, it ain't going to get done. So I'm sorry, but I'm with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you on, Danny. Of course, it's an important time coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, obviously, with the transfer portal. But, I mean, what are you expecting? Like, people ask me, like, how do you, how's this going to go and how's that going to go? But, like, I don't know how many players are going to end up retaining on this team.
Yeah.
Do they move some guys who are walk-ons just into the scholarship role? For those who don't know, I mean, it's 105 scholarships moving forward and 105 caps. So everybody who is on the roster in any capacity is going to be on scholarship. So do you just – I've kind of said, Danny, I think maybe you just focus on your top 60 guys, get those guys paid, and the rest of the guys are kind of like, guys who get scholarships. But what do you think?
It's probably the most fun cycle we're ever going to cover because there are so many moving parts and so many unknowns. We're kind of all learning this at the same time and on the fly. So, I look at it like this, Trey. There's so many storylines just from the standpoint of, all right, you start there. How many guys are coming back and for what reason? And so many of these guys may be leaving for, reasons that are obvious, fit, scheme, that type thing. You're going to have some of those guys that just have to go. They've got a better opportunity. They want to move down. They want to play more. You're going to have X amount of guys that leave just for those standard reasons. How many of those, though, we have no idea. The second part of that is, you look at some of the homecoming opportunities they may have, and everybody's walking on eggshells because you don't want to accuse of tampering and all the things. But let's face it, man, there's a lot of Arkansas kids or kids that have played at Arkansas who could potentially look at coming back to Arkansas. And so there's a whole group of that going on. Then you've got the Memphis guys. How many of those guys do they want to, for lack of a better term, just kind of steal from Memphis? Some of those guys can play. We've talked about some of these defensive backs that have entered from Memphis. Everett Russaw is a Georgia, used to be an Arkansas commit, Georgia-based linebacker, who was really fired up to become a Razorback at one point and they went a different direction. He went on to UAB, then to Memphis. Now he's kind of earned his stripes a little bit. Is he a guy that, there's a lot of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ultimate big storyline that we're all following is how many of these splash type names from around the country at multiple positions, whether they include quarterback in that or not, you still need them at every other position. You would love a big time receiver based on what you're losing with Omega and some of these guys, some of the unknowns at that position. A tight end would be outstanding. I think we all feel positive about Jaden Platt and the direction, we saw him take as a young guy this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little better than I thought, Trey. Something
Yeah.
to build on there. But wouldn't you love a sure enough, hands down dude, again at that position?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he is that guy. But offensive tackles, we know that's going to be a spot to replace. Defensive linemen, that's where you're going to find out how much money you got.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, you see it all around the conference so far. Some of these LSU guys, Florida, Auburn's had some go into the portal. Yeah, you got to have them. Go get them. It's as simple as that. Can you afford to go get them? And I think, just based on the early vibe, maybe they do have a little more jingle in their pocket. I'm excited to see what they can come up with here in the next few weeks.
Well, there's no question they've spent more on this assistant coaching staff. Matt Zennett's told me, he's like, I think Arkansas did a really strong job with their hires, and of course he is breaking just about all of them. But yeah,
Trey, we got a new offer here. I skipped right over.
Okay.
There's another Division II offer. Last week we talked about the D2 offer to Kanye Thompson out at Slippery Rock, 10-1-100. I mean, that's all you got to say, right? But this next one, Cameron Cooper, and I want to say it's another situation where you start the show and then boom, we've got news because he just announced it within the last 40 minutes or so. But Cameron Cooper from Western Colorado, and again, want to tell people, forget about that name beside the name. Sometimes you got to remind yourself of John Ridgway, Andrew Armstrong, Tesla, who again yesterday.
Rohan Jones, add Rohan Jones to that list.
There you go. Would love to find another one. But Cameron Cooper, 6'2", he says 6'3". His school says 6'2", 230. True freshman. Here's the part I like, Trey. He's originally from Gilbert, Arizona, went to Chandler High School. You should probably have Keith on to talk about what a great program. So much talent has come out of that school. So maybe it's just one that needed a year of development. I'm not saying he's, Ray Lewis, but give him a shot. Don't judge him on the school. Still a young player, would make a lot of sense if you could go get a guy like that. He's a young guy. You would have 3 years left. So maybe one to keep an eye on there. And again, wouldn't shock me at all, Trey, if he sets up a visit fairly quickly. We know Texas Tech has already offered. Talking about money now, you're going to have some of it if Texas Tech's involved. So
100%.
Yeah, Cameron Cooper, write that one down.
Danny, Arkansas has to get some, like it's great to get a lot of good players. And, I think that's kind of what's happened a lot here in the last couple of years with the transfer portal. Arkansas has gone out and gotten some good players, some, guys who have experience, veterans, got good size and stuff. But studs, like who are the studs for Arkansas last year? Rohan Jones, Omega Blake for a good part of the season. Mike Washington was a stud. But like, you've got to have, if you're Arkansas, you've got to have a Matt Jones on your team. You've got to have a Darren McFadden, a Nile Davis, Joe Adams, guys like that who are just different. Traylon Burks. I mean, it's great to get, fill your roster out where you feel good about the numbers and everything. The one thing Arkansas really, they misevaluated some guys, but they did not do a very good job at all on the defensive line. And it's almost kind of like they got caught in a moment where it's just like, oh, crap, there's nobody left. There's not as many guys entering the portals we thought, and we didn't spend any money on the defensive line, and it showed. But, you've got to go out and get a solid and deep defensive line, period. There should be no reason that you don't do that aside from money and, being irresponsible, really.
Dude, you got to. It really doesn't matter what else it does. But at some point,
almost doesn't, though.
It almost doesn't. When you're constantly 16th, and let's just whittle it down to defensive tackle talent in the SEC. If you just rank that every year, where does Arkansas fall in defensive tackle talent? It would be 15th or 16th every year. And you can't go out there and expect to win SEC games, close games, and stop the run. And you're just not. You just ain't going to do it.
And playing, playing Quincy and Cam as many snaps as they do. Like, you don't need to be playing those guys that kind of got, that many snaps. They need to be getting like 40, you know.
I'm with you, though, on some of the splash names, man. What's keeping them from doing that? Not just the D linemen, but even on offense. What's keeping you from making a run at C.J. Baxter? A kid that he's been on campus a couple of times as a recruit. He really liked Jimmy back in the day. And, who knows? Maybe those Florida State guys, you got their running backs coach, maybe some connections there. But, man, I'm with you. I want to see some pop. I like the NC State receiver, Terrell Anderson. Carius Kern. I like names that you turn on College Game Day and you hear them talking about them. I like name recognition too. I mean, I love these guys that come out of nowhere, Ridgeway and all that. I love it. But man, you got to have some household names in this environment.
And in the skill spots, like Arkansas had a lot of pretty good wide receivers last year. Did they have a stud?
No.
Did they have a guy that's just different? And maybe Antonio Jordan turns into that one day, but you got to have some known also. And I feel that way about quarterback, and I've made that point several times that I like KJ's potential and stuff. And, everybody comes from somewhere. But to me, I just really feel a lot more comfortable if Arkansas spent a lot of money on a big-name quarterback, because you have got – just like you have to have a defensive line, if you don't have a really good quarterback – nothing matters. And if you don't have somebody to protect them, then that doesn't matter either. I mean, it's all connected tissue, but you got to have a great quarterback if you're Arkansas. You just do. Every team that's in the college football playoff does.
I just want to throw this in here just for the sake of conversation. I'm sure I've gone over on time. But Colton Joseph, the ODU quarterback, Old Dominion quarterback transfer, he's been in it for a little bit now. I do have some new information there. Trey, it looked like, and you'll remember last early last fall, Coach Pittman said, I talked to Bobby about KJ, and he basically assured me we don't have to go get a transfer. At the end of the year when Talen's done, he felt like KJ's the guy. And I think that meant a lot to people and still does. That's a heavy, heavy statement from Bobby, right? But as it turns out, this morning I find out that this old ODU quarterback, Colton Joseph, it appeared maybe Arkansas was trying to position itself when Bobby was still the coach to be making a run at this one. And now that he's out of the picture, maybe you see North Carolina move into the picture for the Old Dominion quarterback. But I thought that was interesting development this morning. Maybe it wasn't going the way we planned anyway. Had Bobby gotten the job, I think he was about to make a move on this joker here, Colton Joseph. So could be one to I do think there's interest on his end if Arkansas has interest, but we'll see where it goes from here. Based on what I was told, though, it sounds like Bobby might have the guy. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, Arkansas's got to add quarterbacks anyway. I mean, they don't have enough, and it's a very young room overall. Like,
I think you and I may be on it's rare, Trey, that we don't fully agree on something, but I don't know that you got to go get a $1 million guy. I think I would feel comfortable enough if it was just a guy that had started. I'm not saying his confidence is shot, but maybe he lost a job because of a better guy that moved ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe just a guy with the experience where if KJ, knock on wood, if something were to happen, I don't know. I maybe I'm too high on KJ, but I really love the kid. Really,
I do
really
too.
high on
It's nothing against KJ to me, but it's just like, I would just hate to.
I know what you mean.
Invest so much and then get that wrong.
Yeah.
At the most important position in all of sports.
Yep. Anyway,
all right, Danny.
Went long. Yep. See ya.
Appreciate you, buddy. All right, everybody. That's Danny West. I've got some kind of weird muscle spasm going right here in the middle. I've never had this before, but it's like right there. So I need to drink some more water. Like it's doing it right now. You can't see it, but it is. Okay. Where do we want to go to? Well, I'd like to tell you real quick about Bet Saracen, Arkansas's #1 sports betting app. If you use the promo code Biddy, capital B, lowercase IDDY 125, if you use that promo code and you put at least $25 on your first bet, you'll get $125 back in bonuses that you can use to bet on at Bet Saracen. So use the link below and make sure to enter the promo code BIDDY 125, and you can get that deal. As I mentioned, we hit our only bets. We took Houston out of battered hog syndrome. We took the over in that one, and unfortunately, both of those hit. It's kind of like a bet hedging type of deal. But anxious to see where this basketball team goes moving forward. But Bet Saracen, Arkansas's #1 sports betting app.
Arkansas's favorite sports stars explain what they like most about Bet Saracen.
Bet Saracen is not only Arkansas's top sports betting app, it's also the 13th largest in the nation.
Darren McFadden, and there's a serious plow horse. No wonder Jerry liked him.
Check out this Bet Saracen promo.
Place $5 or more parlays, and if yours rank among the top winning odds, score your share of $50,000.
What are you guys having for Christmas dinner? You doing a traditional Thanksgiving type of Christmas dinner? You doing something different? We're actually doing something a little different this year. My wife's brother-in-law, they have a restaurant, and they are making us for Christmas Eve dinner. It's not I don't know if I'd call it a pot pie, but it's a lobster pot pie something. I've never had anything like that before, but they've shown me pictures of what they're going to do, and that's what they're going to cook for us. So really looking forward to that. We also were catered by them at a Christmas party I was at last night. We had 16 people, and man, it was incredible. We had 7 courses. Outstanding. What are you guys having for Christmas? We usually do my mom, that side of the family, we have always done, when we do Thanksgiving together and Christmas, it's always very traditional. This is the recipe for the mac and cheese. This is the recipe for the sweet potato casserole, the broccoli casserole, all that stuff. It's all very traditional, and that's the tradition. My wife's side of the family, their tradition is kind of like the Oregon Ducks uniforms. It's different every game. Their tradition is changing uniforms, and my wife's side of the family, their tradition is having something different. And every time I've spent Thanksgiving or Christmas with them, it's always been something different, which is a good tradition also. So let me see where we've got our questions. Appreciate everybody joining us, by the way. I want to thank everybody for, this year and just watching the show, subscribing to the website, supporting us and all the things that we do. It's really, I get blown away sometimes just by, the fact that there's 1,000 people watching this on Monday, December 22nd, before Christmas, or just all the number of subscribers that we have at HawgSports, making us one of the 10 largest sites in the country. It means a lot to be able to do the job that I do. And yes, it's exhausting sometimes because of the commitment from a time standpoint, having to keep your eyes peeled, trying to find out what's going on all the time. The door's never really closing. Again, not hard work, but we work really hard at it. And we certainly appreciate everybody for their support. It means the world to us. And I know I speak on behalf of Danny and Kevin and Connor, everybody at HawgSports. Hogtalica says, if you were a football coach, what would your slogan be? Or would you not have a slogan? I like Silverfield's all in, but there's a very fine line between good and bad slogans. Thing with a slogan is it'll get thrown back at you when things don't go well. Brett Bielema had uncommon, and it got thrown back at him. Sam Pittman didn't really believe in having a slogan. He wanted to keep things simple, but it, kind of turned into turn on that damn jukebox. And, that kind of gets thrown back at you. Yes, sir, gets thrown back at you. So if I had a slogan, what would it be? I look good, I feel good, I play good, it's all good. I've always liked that. I don't know. I'm not a big slogan type of guy, but I do think it's good to have stuff like that you can rally around. The hard to kill stuff is going around now. That's a good question. Maybe something I have to think about, but you do get, left lane hammer down. We're still talking about that, so it gets thrown back at your face when things don't go well. Nick Saban he wasn't really a slogan guy. He just always talked about the process. I think it needs to be very functional, and all in's fine. I don't have a problem with all in. C. Martin 16 says, if you had to give a quick summary of your thoughts of the completed football staff, what would it be? I think it's actually a pretty good staff. And, you're not going to, like, every hire that you make is not going to be like, one of those kind of things. Brett Bielema's staff was very much like that. His initial staff at Arkansas was just one after another. It was just like, dang, that's a nice addition. That's a nice pickup. Tim Cramsey has a lot of experience as an offensive coordinator, but not really on the Power 5 level, so there's a little bit of a pullback, but he's got 17 years or something. And they've been very consistent on offense at Memphis. Clint Trickett is a guy that I, have kind of followed his career forever, because in 2010, he was being recruited by Arkansas and ended up going to Florida State, transferred to West Virginia where he was a starter, retired because of concussions. The next thing I know, he pops up on Last Chance U at East Mississippi. And he's kind of risen through the ranks, but he's a guy with coordinator experience at Jacksonville State. And kind of a guy that works in conjunction with Tim Cramsey. Usually your offensive coordinator is also your quarterback's coach. But now that's kind of, those guys will kind of work in tandem. Larry Smith is a guy that's got SEC experience as a player, not as a coach. David Johnson has a pretty large amount of experience on the major college level, obviously being from Florida State and being a recruiting coordinator. And I've said this before, to me, the most important thing about your running backs coach is that he can recruit and evaluate. That's the most important thing. And he's had some really good running backs that have played under him. Marcus Johnson has been around the SEC, been in the Big Ten, was at Ohio State as an assistant offensive line coach, kind of in a, sometimes you have that like 1 year after, the Purdue staff got fired. So he goes to Ohio State. But he's a guy with SEC experience and played in the SEC. He was a second-team All-SEC player, I think 2 times, second-round NFL draft pick. Jeff Myers has coached at Iowa State for 5 years. I never saw anything like Jeff Myers was fired at Iowa State. I never saw that he was fired, but a lot of times when you don't want to fire a guy, but you feel like you just kind of have to do that, due to, perception and stuff. Like you'll tell the guy, hey, go find another job or something. But if you want to make a point, then you fire him. Like Pittman did to the strength coach a few years ago, basically fired him on the tarmac when they got back from Missouri. But I feel like that was kind of that situation. And he was there for 5 years. He's been there a couple of years at Memphis now, and obviously brought over, which I think says something. Like if you bring a guy with you from the other staff, it's usually a guy that you like. He didn't bring every single coach with him from Memphis to Arkansas, so he picked the guys that he likes the best. Morgan Turner, obviously, we were familiar with him as tight ends coach, the one holdover from the last staff. Ron Roberts, there's mixed reviews on Ron Roberts, the way people talk about him. But to me, he has got a wealth of experience as a defensive coordinator, many years, regarded as an innovator. Is his best football behind him? I don't know, but I think that he's going to be a step up from what they've had in terms of, scheme and stuff like that. There's a lot of coaches out there who today copy what Ron Roberts innovated. Marion Hobby, I think that's a huge hire. I mean, the guy has been at 4 different NFL teams as a defensive line coach, was defensive coordinator at Clemson, and now coming to Arkansas. I think that's a really big get. I heard there were, other schools that really wanted him also. I know the least about Kanji Cotton. I really don't know a whole lot about him. He was kind of the guy that was a surprise to us. We obviously know Darren Wilson. Darren Wilson left Arkansas to take the Georgia State defensive coordinator job, and then Florida came and said, hey, will you be our secondary coach? And so he was there for a year. And then Eddie Hicks will work in conjunction with him. Eddie Hicks, who Hicks was Cincinnati, I believe. So, and then Chad Lunsford, a guy with head coaching experience at Georgia Southern as your special teams coach. So I've also heard some really good things about Geiska, Crowley, and Scott Gasper, some of these guys working in player personnel. Arkansas's recruiting department was, in my opinion, it's kind of been a mess, And I was talking with Danny too off air just about, this whole staff and the activity that they, have social media, like who they're following, recruits and, potential guys and all that kind of stuff. He's like, they seem extremely active based on, compared to what he's used to. Long answer to a pretty short question there, C. Martin. Big DC 77, Trey, after the staff taking shape, do we have the funds being portrayed in the 5 to 10 range of spending in the SEC with the hires? I mean, based on 2024 numbers, they're in the top 5 in terms of salary. Now, that's obviously it goes up kind of every year, but I would say they're probably in the upper half. I think just kind of what they were saying that they wanted to be. Last part, do you see us going after a big name quarterback in the portal? I've said before, I hope that they do that to compete with KJ for the quarterback that drug our entire defensive line to ice it for Memphis, to compete with KJ, or the quarterback that drug our entire defensive line to ice it for the Memphis. Was that yeah, it was the backup quarterback, wasn't it? Well, I've mentioned this before, but a couple years ago, Ole Miss had Jackson Dart, and they brought in that kid from the starter at Oklahoma State. They brought in Oklahoma State starter. He ended up sitting the bench. They brought in Walker Howard, who was a top 50 prospect nationally from LSU, to come in and compete with him. Like that's what you do. I think you have competition like that. Taylor Green just kind of faded throughout the year. If Taylor Green had played the rest of the year the way he started, the first quarter of the season or so, Arkansas would have won a lot more games. But you gotta take care of the football. And I've said this before, like you've got to instill toughness in this team. You have to be tough and rugged football player. You just do. Like for all the flash and all the high flying and stuff, it's still about toughness. Number one thing, you have to be tough. You have to have grit. You have to love football, and you got to be talented. But you got to get that culture and that fit right. That has to be a big part of it. And I don't know that Arkansas has really had that in a while. I think they have guys that, not everybody, but I think they have a lot of guys that are looking at what their future. I think they have guys that are looking ahead too much. What's my future hold? Where am I going to be next year? Who's going to be my coach? How the money's going to be. You got to get the guys that fit right culturally, that want to be there, that want to win. I mean, it's just a mentality thing, I think. Razorback 1963 says, what are your thoughts on the new coordinator hires? I think I gave that pretty much in the last response. Cody Andrews says, have you gotten a peek into what the funds are available? I have not yet. I would think that Arkansas is, if the talk that they are using is accurate, and it seems to be accurate with the assistant coach salary pool, so no reason to think that it's not accurate for NIL. I would think that we're talking, up to about $25 million for player acquisition. That to me is, if you're Arkansas, is a good spot to be in, I think. And we're going to find out. They're going to have to spend a lot of money to build this roster. I mean, there's no question. Again, I would think that you spend your money on your top 60. That's what I would do. I would not try to go out and get 105 guys that I'm paying money. I just wouldn't. And I wonder how it's going to impact smaller schools because as I've mentioned before, if you're a small school like Division II school or something like that, if you're a good program like if you took the walk-ons at Arkansas in the past and you put them up against a Division II team, that Division II team would probably beat the walk-ons. I think there's a misconception that like the next best thing is a walk-on at a major college program. Now there are some guys, obviously, that some linemen or something like that. You see a lot of linemen, but for the most part, that's not the case really. So now you're talking about giving guys scholarships who would otherwise just have scholarships on Division II level, and you know what I mean? Like you're putting them on scholarship at Arkansas. How's that going to impact those programs? It's probably just going to widen the gap, really. Raw Hog says, what's your favorite Christmas memory? Do you have a favorite toy you remember getting as a kid? When I was in kindergarten, I wanted a goat. I wanted a goat for Christmas. And I remember getting up at my grandmother's house, and I walked in, and everybody's already in there playing with their toys and everything, and there's no goat. And, I'm sure I had a little tantrum, but I remember what everybody tells me anyway. I said, it was like, Santa didn't bring me nothing. I've been bad, and I think I got sent to my room to go sleep some more. But then later was told that, yes, I did get a goat. The goat was at home, and obviously not in the living room at my grandmother's house. But they asked me what I was going to name the goat, and I was looking at a radio, and I said, Rady, working Rhodey the goat. So that goat crapped all over my mom's couch in the that she was refinishing in the basement, and put all those pellets all over it and peed all over it, I think. So my mom did not like that goat. But that one stands out to me. So here's another one. When I was 21, probably, my dad bought me a Blazer. I got a car. I got a Blazer. I needed a car desperately. But I got a GMC, not a Blazer, but a GMC, why can't I remember the name of that car? A Jimmy, which I loved. I loved that car. But I got the car, and then my sisters got a horse. My dad used to race trotting sires and stuff. But he bought them a horse that they had no business owning, because this thing was insane. Like, it was not broken. And I got on that horse, and I got bucked off and landed basically on the back of my head, right? And got a grade 2 concussion. And I got back in the car to drive with me and my sister back to the house, and I could not remember how to drive. I couldn't remember anything. And we get back to the house, and my sister Suzanne's like, Trey can't remember anything. Like, I don't know what's going on. And they all thought I was joking. My dad had just moved into this house that he built. I'm looking around the house like I'd just seen it for the first time. And then after a while, I'm just sitting there, and I started cussing, like yelling, because nobody believed me. And my grandmother was there. And at that point, everybody knew that there was something wrong with me. They told me to go take a nap, which you never do with a concussion. We go to the hospital and everything, and they're looking at me, and I'm resetting like every 5 minutes, asking what's going on over and over again. Anyway, didn't remember getting that car. Got the car again. So I got the car twice. Afterwards, things kind of come back a little bit here and there, so I remember stuff. But in the moment, like, I was like, I got a car? So Danny mentioned that he was audio. Marcus T05 says, favorite Christmas carol, favorite Christmas movie show. Favorite Christmas carol, I was actually talking with somebody about this yesterday. I kind of like that, the weather outside is frightful. You know that one? But the fire so delightful. I kind of like that one. I don't know. Something about it. I like Merry Christmas from the Family is a funny one. You may not know this, but one of my cousins is Ray Stevens. Somebody said one time, he's like, that's not true. Why would you say that? I was like, why would I make that up? Why would I make it? Why would I pick Ray Stevens? But anyway, Santa Claus is watching you. He's everywhere. But I would say that, I don't know, that rather outside. I like a lot of Christmas songs. I really do. Nat King Cole was playing the other day at a party. I was like, man, that guy's got some pipes. You just kind of forget until you hear it again. Favorite Christmas movie or show? My favorite Christmas movie is Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation. And I think it's my daughter's also. I like Four Christmases a lot. And I like some of the classics. I usually end up watching It's a Wonderful Life every year, in bits and pieces of it. But I would say Vacation is number one. We usually watch that in its entirety every year. I don't know. Did you expect me to say those? Did you expect those answers from me? Burgess Maximus says, Trey, any thoughts on whether we retain Platt at tight end? He is the prototype of what you would want in the SEC. Merry Christmas to you and yours. I think so, but I don't know. I would think that you try to retain your best players. That is something that has hurt Arkansas so badly over the years. Last year, losing 8 or 9 guys that they wanted to keep. The rest of the guys they didn't. And as I mentioned on last week's show, it's on you that you were fine with all those other guys, the 26 other guys or whatever who left on their own, and you were fine with it because those are guys you brought in the program. That's on you. Yeah, we didn't care that we lost those guys. Well, those are guys you recruited. But you can't lose Jalen Braxton and Luke Haas and, Nico Davier, Isaiah Satania. Watching those college football playoff games, Jalen Braxton had an interception early in that game. It's dang. And the game before that, Isaiah Satania, I don't think he had a big game or anything, but he was a key player for Oklahoma this year. And what I heard, Oklahoma offered him a reasonable amount of money for a guy in his position. Not an outrageous amount of money, but Arkansas just was kind of well, we can, go out and get other guys. And yeah, wide receiver is probably a position where you say, yeah, we can go find other guys. And I believe that, I think there were plenty of other options in the transfer portal, but some of the stuff I've heard, about what Arkansas was willing to pay Isaiah Satania, just was kind of that seems like a low ball number. And I know they had to pay the other wide receivers more than what that is. So anyway, Marcus TO5, are the things that Silverfield is doing that you prefer versus things that Sam was or wasn't doing? I think Sam, when he came in, he was a good fit for that moment. I think the job that Sam Pittman signed up for wasn't the job that he ended up performing at Arkansas. Arkansas brought him in as a guy that was going to get the offensive line right, a guy that was going to be a good recruiter for them. And what ended up happening was recruiting turned into just about money, and the transfer portal became huge, and Arkansas didn't do a good job of capitalizing on that 9-win season back in 2021, and he just didn't have any support. They had to fire Sam Pittman because people were not willing to donate. They were not willing to support Sam Pittman. They had no choice. So when the opportunity arose, 2 years too late, in my opinion. I like Sam. I've made that point before, but liking somebody and, them being, a successful football coach are two different things. You have to separate that. But Sam's a good guy, and I hope he's doing well. He did not have the level of support that he needed to, do a good job. But also, I'm not sure that if he had more support, they would have done a great job. So I like having guys that are, a little more energetic, have something to prove. And I feel like Silverfield feels like he's got something to prove. I like that. I like that you have something to prove. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. There's been a lot of points made also, about coaches who you think should do great and coaches who people don't think are going to do great, and it flips, So for me, he's just been more present across the state of Arkansas. I agree with that. I see Silverfield as a women's basketball game. He was at Simmons Bank, where Central Arkansas fans got to see him and take pictures with. Just feels like a lot of integration to the state. Yeah, you got to pull the state together. There's no question. It's one thing Houston Nutt did such a good job of. He really pulled the state together. Back then, you'd go to all the Razorback Club meetings and all that kind of stuff too. So, all right, everybody. Well, I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Are you an eggnog type of guy? I like to start the morning with a Bloody Mary. Christmas, Thanksgiving. I don't probably have a Bloody Mary any other time of year, but on those 2 dates, I'm going to wake up and we're going to get some pickled okra and some olives and some celery and some of those pepperoncini peppers. I'm going to put that together. I'm going to have me a Bloody Mary in the morning. Christmas tradition, Thanksgiving tradition, and then looking forward to some lobster pot pie. Oh my goodness. I want to know what everybody's having. I like to read the comments. I read the comments, people, so leave a comment, like, share, follow, show it to your papaw. Your papaw doesn't know about this show. He loves the Razorbacks. He's used to reading the newspaper. Now he's got to figure it out on his iPad. show him the show. He'll appreciate you for it. All right, everybody. Thanks to Danny West. Thanks to Connor Goodson. Thanks to all of you, and have a Merry Christmas. And we'll see you again before New Year's. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.